and expectancy of life, or how Hans Rosling calls it, the health of people. So, let me explain how does that work. For that, we have solidified the laser into a broom, so I can show you the chart. Here we will have income per person, and on the other axis, life expectancy. Income is on dollars. The bubbles, each bubble represents a country, its colors represent a region in the world map, and the size of the bubble represents the population of the country. We start here, in the beginning of the 19th century. Data is not very reliable, but we can have an idea of how all the countries are more or less the same. Of course, there's a difference, almost 10 times the income per person, but still they are in a cloud situation. You can see like Europe here is Africa, the Americas, and the life expectancy hardly was above 40. And then now we are going to see what happened.
So in the 18th century, in the beginning, we can see that there is not that much difference, and only after the 1840 they start moving, they gain more higher income per person, the European countries, the United States and Canada. But only close to the 20th century they start to get higher, to live longer. And in 1930 it's really big difference. But you see that they start moving, China, India and the African countries, although they don't get that much money, they have longer life expectancy. But you see that there is a tendency to reach the developed countries. Although the developed countries are way ahead, China, India and the Middle East, they seem that they reach these countries. Of course, Latin American too. Africa is still really low. I mean, even the countries that have a higher income, they're really low in their life expectancy. But what we see here is a clear line, a tendency for the third world to reach the developed world. And it seems in the end that the life expectancy, the health in a country, it's really dependent and related to the income per person.
We just saw that we find a relation between the income and the life expectancy. So okay, they have more money, but where do they spend that money? Do they spend on health? They can spend on anything. So let's see if now we have the health spending compared to the life expectancy. So let's see if that's a truth. We see that there's going to be a tendency of spending more money on health, but this is a graph that works sideways. We don't see that the bigger the amount of money spent on health really relates to life expectancy. For example, here, the United States, you see that they are spending 15% of the total GDP, but the life expectancy is not increasing. Actually, almost no country has an increase on life expectancy relating to the health. So we can see through the years here that this graph has a horizontal way of moving. What happens? We see that the total health spending, I can play that again. We don't see a difference relating the total health spending with an increase of life expectancy. You see an increase of money on health, but it doesn't really relate to the increase on the age expected. So, comparing with the first graph, we don't see like a straight line with the developed country ahead and the third world behind it. You see that many African countries spend as much as Europe or Japan. And Japan has the greatest life expectancy of 83%. Here in Africa, in Afghanistan, we have 40%. And they spend as much as many as the developed countries. So
let's try to play a little bit. Okay, if you live, you will reach the 83 years in Japan. But let's try to figure out how many people live actually to reach the 80 years, the 83rd year of their life.
Although we saw that money seems to relate with the life expectancy, then we saw that the amount of money a country spends on health doesn't really translate into a bigger life. Let's see how many people actually die on those countries. So we go to the third graph, where we will compare the crude death rate, which means deaths per 1,000 per people, and then with life expectancy. So we can see how many people die in each country.
So let's see how this goes through the years. We are in the 1953, where we have the statistics. We have death rate and life expectancy. Well, it's like a little bit like as we predicted. I mean, you can see that the third world and the developed world. The developed world has very long life expectancy and really low deaths. But you can see that the third world, the Africa, there is a big gap. I mean, many people die, and if they manage to live, they live only until their 30s. Okay, let's say until their 50s. But let's play a little bit through the years, because then we will see something amazing. You can see that the third world really catches up. I mean, you can see China reaching the European countries. The India goes behind, but they go really fast. You know, the developed world stays
there's Cambodia, that's the war.
In the same place. I mean, Africa is a little bit back, but it starts going.
Rwanda,
and now
war.
you can see that the Middle East, China, they have lower death rate than the European Union, than the European countries, and we're now in 2007. And actually, what we discover here, that although the life expectancy remains really high in the developed world, we can see that actually Africa and Europe, you have Europe here, Africa here, actually overlaps one each other. I mean, you can see that in Europe, if you manage to live, you live longer, but you have the same chances with the African countries to live. Let's go here. We can see Iraq, and we can see the United States. Can you imagine that? You have more chances to live in Iraq than in the United States. It's crazy. Middle East, than in China, than in India. It seems that we have this misconception due to all these wars and all this like the HIV virus in Africa. It seems that we think that there are more people dying there, but actually there are more people, or the same people dying in Africa than in Europe. In Europe, there are more people dying in the United States than in Iraq and in Palestine. Yeah, live with that.